And welcome back. Some of the hottest housing markets over the past several years have been located in Texas. However, some of these markets are actually cooling off greatly compared to the highs we saw last year. So in today's video, I'm going to touch on what we're seeing right now in Austin, Texas, Houston, as well as Dallas, Texas as well. I'm going to share the latest trends we're seeing right now regarding home prices, price reductions, housing inventory, and of course, much more. And by the way, if you're only interested in one of these cities, I'll add chapters below so you guys can fast forward. Let's first talk about Austin, Texas, what we're seeing right now according to the Redfin data center here. So new listings are down 11.1%. This is unusual compared to other cities in the US because for the nation as a whole, new listings have been decreasing by double digits on a year-over-year basis for quite some time. But in Austin, Texas, we're only seeing a decrease of 11.1%, very close to 2022 and of course 2021. So new listings down by 11%. Let's have a look at active listings, which is housing inventory. And look at that, that's absolutely insane. So there's 96.77% more houses for sale in Austin, Texas compared to last year's levels. Which is crazy because inventory has more or less been flat this year, but still having said that, we're still up by 97%. It's actually going to be really interesting to see what happens during the summer months and also the spring months as well, because obviously back in 2022, starting around March and April last year, inventory was absolutely skyrocketing until it really peaked at around August and September last year. Okay, let's also look at the number of pending home sales. This is the amount of houses under contract with a home buyer. So pendings are down 14% from last year's levels, also below 2021 as well. And by the way, the orange line right here is 2021, the black line is 2022, and the blue line below right here is for 2023, this year. I would love to share 2019's levels with you guys, but Redfin actually excluded that once we hit 2023, unfortunately. What this is really telling me is that the reason why we have a giant increase of housing inventory is due to a pullback in home buying demand and not due to a giant surge of new listings. Because remember, new listings are down 11% compared to 1 year ago. And having said that, active listings are up by almost 97%. In regards to the number of closed home sales for Austin, Texas, closed home sales are down nearly 18% on a year-to-year basis, below 2021 as well. Home sales have been increasing ever since January and February this year, but more recently though, it has been increasing, but not at the same rate we saw a couple months ago. In regards to the share of price drops in Austin, Texas, here's altosresearch.com. And the share right now for price reductions is 44%. So approximately 4 of every 10 houses for sale have reduced their asking prices. Look at this though, because during the end of last year, the share was around 63%. It has decreased now to about 44%. Now this is normal to see the share of price drops decrease after the winter months, like it does every single year. The peak of the share of price drops more or less peaks in fall and the winter months each and every year. But at 44%, this is much higher compared to the past several years. 1 year ago, the share was about 15%. 2 years ago, it was only 10%. And 3 years ago, back in 2020, it was 25%. 2019, pre-COVID, it was 35%. And at the end of April of 2018, it was 35%. So the share of price reductions in Austin, Texas right now, during the same time frame, is at least a 4 to 5 year high. I also want to provide an update regarding home sold prices in Austin, Texas as well. So the median sold price for the 4 weeks ended April 9th this year was $457,000. That's a decrease of 14% compared to the same time frame of 2022. So down 14% on a year-over-year basis though. Here's the bigger story though, because the peak, which is more or less May last year, was $573,000. This means by my dumb math that home sold prices in Austin, Texas have decreased by about 20% compared to last year's highs. Additionally, prices are getting very, very close to a 2-year low in Austin, Texas as well, at $457,000. During the same time frame of 2021, it was only $440,000. So very, very close to getting to a 2-year low regarding home prices in Austin, Texas. Lastly, here's one more trend I want to share with you guys regarding the market here. So the average sale price to final list price ratio was about 98%, meaning on average during the 4 weeks ended April 9th this year, houses sold for about 2% below the final list price. This is much different compared to 2022, when on average, houses were selling for about 6% over asking. And also back in 2021 this time, houses were selling for about 8% over asking. Now the ratio this year has been increasing. We started the year at 96%. Now it's at almost at 98%, but still well below the past couple of years for houses selling for about 2% below, whereas the past couple of years, houses were selling for well over the asking price. So that was the latest trends we're seeing right now in Austin, Texas. Let's have a look at Houston, Texas as well. So new listings are down by about 14% on a year-over-year basis, below 2021 as well. So new listings down by 14%, whereas Austin was down by 11.1%. Let's look at housing inventory in Houston's housing market here. So active listings have been decreasing every single week. That's crazy. Look at that. We started the year at a gain of 46%. Now it's at 41%. This is highly unusual to see active listings, or the number of houses for sale, decrease in the early spring months. Look at 2022, for example. Starting in more or less March, we saw an increase of housing inventory. This year, entirely different. Active listings going down more or less every single week this year. Of course, having said that, we're still up by about 41% from last year's levels though. Let's look at pending home sales. When a home seller accepts an offer from a home buyer, pendings are down 24%. Wild. So pendings were increasing through more or less right here, but started to decrease in March this year. Down greatly, down by 24%, and obviously below 2021's levels as well. Let's look at the share of price drops as well in Houston, Texas, because the share of price drops in Houston is at 35%. This is much higher compared to last year's levels at 29%, 2 years ago at 29% as well. But at 35% right now, this is more or less on par with April of 2020. Also at 35%, this is below pre-COVID levels back in 2019 this time, when the share of price drops was 38%. Okay, let's also talk about home prices in Houston, Texas, because this is absolutely wild right here. The median sold price in Houston, Texas has only decreased by 2% on a year-over-year basis. Absolutely insane, getting very, very close to 2022's levels at $328,000 right now. 1 year ago at this time, it was only $333,000. So the delta on that is only $5,000? Pretty wild to see that. I would imagine we're not going to see this growth of home prices through May that we saw last year, but pretty astonishing to see that the median sold price in Houston, Texas is not too far off last year's levels, and we're still well above 2021. Back in 2021 this time, the median sold price was $290,000. Now it's $328,000. Also, have a look at this, because this is a trend that's vastly different compared to Austin, Texas. At $328,000, that's a median sold price according to Redfin. Back in May last year, it was $353,000. This means that home sold prices in Houston, Texas, have only decreased by 7% compared to last year's levels. Compare that to Austin, Texas, prices have decreased by 20%. Here's something else that's different compared to Austin, Texas as well, because the average sale price to final list price ratio is at 98%. The same ratio for Austin, Texas, houses selling for about 2% below the seller's final list price. But this ratio has been going straight up ever since February of this year. Also at 98% right now, this is not too much far off last year's levels at 100%. So 1 year ago, houses were selling for the seller's asking price on average. Now they're selling for about 2% below. So just big picture here, it appears that Houston, Texas housing market is holding up a lot better compared to Austin, Texas. But let's have a look at Dallas, Texas to see any differences here. So new listings in Dallas, Texas have decreased by 11.6%, on par with Austin as well. New listings down compared to last year and also compared to 2021. Housing inventory. Let's look at housing inventory. Wow, that's crazy as well. Same for Houston, Texas. Inventory tanking every single week. That is wild to see that. So even though inventory has been falling big time, it's still up by 56% from 2022. That's just wild though. But to start the year, we're a gain at 96%. Now it's only a gain of 56%. That's just absolutely wild to see that. Again, just like Houston, it's going to be interesting to see what happens regarding inventory levels in the spring and summer months, because at this time last year, inventory was shooting up, whereas this year it's shooting straight down. That's just wild to see that. So approximately 56% more houses for sale in Dallas, Texas right now. Let's have a look at pending home sales, and that is more or less in line with 2022. Wow, only down 4% from last year's levels. So the number of pending home sales very, very close to last year's levels. It appears that the market there is actually holding up quite well. Look at this, because to start the year, pendings were down 23%. They actually were above 2022's levels back in February this year. Now they're only down by 4% from last year. So that's the number of contracts being signed right now between buyers and sellers. That's an early indication of home buying demand. Let's look at closed home sales. So closed home sales are only down by 2.9% from 2022, more or less on par with 2021 as well. This is wild. All right, let's look at the share price drops in Dallas, Texas, according to altusresearch.com. So the share price drops is at approximately 38%, much higher than the 22% we saw back in 2022, the 23% we saw in 2021, but at 38% more or less right now. This is very, very close to 2020's levels at 37%, but it's also below levels we saw back in April of 2019 when the share of price drops was approximately 42%. So share of price drops right now at 38% is a 3-year high, but more or less on par with 2019's levels. Let's also have a look at the median sold price in Dallas, Texas as well, because the median sold price is only down by 2% from 2022's levels at $419,000. This is not too much far off the $427,000 we saw last year, and has been increasing ever since February this year, which is interesting. So $419,000. The peak last year was $464,000. This means the median sold price in Dallas, Texas has decreased by about 10% compared to last year's highs. What stands out to me the most regarding this is that even though prices are down by about 10% from last May, they're only down by 2% from last year's levels. 1 year ago, average rates were around 5%. Now, at the time of filming this video, rates are hovering around 6.5%. So one would assume, given the fact that rates have increased by 1.5 percentage points over the past 1 year, one would assume that prices would be decreasing a lot more than we're seeing right now. Having said that, let's have a look at the average sale price to final list price ratio in Dallas, and that is at very close to being at 99%. So houses on average selling for about 1%, or to be exact, 1.5% below the seller's final list price. Now compare this to 12 months ago. On average, home sellers were selling their houses for about 5% over their final list price. With that said, please comment below with your biggest takeaways from today's video. Also, if you guys got any value out of this video whatsoever, then please hit the like button. I greatly appreciate that. And of course, I appreciate you. Hope you guys have an awesome day. Look forward to seeing you on the next video.